Hey, fam. Welcome back to the Prosperity Pathway podcast. My name is EricaDarchelle, your host, and today we are standing at the ultimate intersection of tech innovation, talent development, and generational wealth building. Our guest today is a master architect of workforce partnerships and a relentless advocate for economic mobility. As a leader at Europe United, he is spearheading initiatives, including groundbreaking AI curriculum partnerships with Anthropic that bridge the gap between underserved young adults and high growth technical careers. He is empowering the next generation to move from manual grind to true sovereign ownership. Please welcome Craig Barnard-El. Did I get your last name right?
You did. And I was just sitting here thinking like, ooh, who is this guy? I like him.
Well, thank you and welcome to the Forge.
Thank you.
So, for those who are just meeting you, never met you before, let's give them a brief rundown of yourself, your story, and what led you to this mission with Europe United before we get into our deeper conversation.
Absolutely. And I'm going to try to be succinct because I can tend to be loquacious. But so I actually originally am from Chicago. And I am a product of mission-driven organizations that range from government assistance, public aid, Section 8 housing, Boys and Girls Club. I mean, all of them that you can think of that are in place to support underserved communities. And so for me, this feels like a full circle moment. As I said, I'm originally from Chicago, started off as a Jesse White Tumbler, another organization that was built to pull young adults out of really dangerous situations and capitalize on their ability to what we used to call it flip. I was really good at tumbling, that all the way to college as a collegiate athlete, won a college scholarship, 2 national titles, started my business right out of college, and that grew into something much bigger than I ever imagined. So by the time of 40, I turned 40, I was ready to pivot, sold everything and decided, okay, I need a job. I need to obtain normal career skills, normal, if there is a thing. And so it began at a private business club, which I was fortunate enough to have a personal connection to senior leadership there. They gave me an opportunity to become a director of membership. There was the first time I had my first experience with Europe United. We were located on the 67th floor of the Willis Tower, which is formerly Sears Tower. Europe United Chicago offices are right across the street. Morgan Stanley, United Airlines, Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase are also in the Willis Tower. And so I would notice these young adults going into the elevator banks of these major organizations. And when you are in that environment, you see the same people going into these very secured entrances. And so when I started seeing these like young adults of color entering into these elevator banks, I was like, who are they and where are they coming from? So I tracked them down, found out about Europe United, and pursued to commit to supporting the organization on a volunteer basis. And so I would go in and participate in their speaker series, their corporate engagement days. I would invite the students in to participate in our networking events. I would host specific events that would support them. I would bring them in for tours and just really built a relationship with them. And that lasted for about 3 years until the pandemic hit, which just shifted everybody's life. Coming out of the pandemic, decided to go back into the fitness industry, not as an entrepreneur, but I took on a leadership role at Equinox, the fitness club in Chicago. Did that for about a year and was quickly noticed and offered a role to take on the regional director role here in DC. Moved here, took that on, helped support opening our Wisconsin Avenue Club, but then just noticed being in DC, disconnected from community, being in a community that, as you can imagine, at Equinox is not full of our community. That's the nicest way I'm going to say it. Just was like, okay, I need to branch out. I need to find my people here. And so I started attending events that were aligned with mission-driven organizations. I joined the advisory board for Tickets for Kids. I joined the advisory board for Chesapeake Bay Outward Bound, both organizations supporting underserved communities. Tickets for Kids, providing tickets to young kids to all kinds of events. Outward Bound, focusing on getting them outside in nature. And I ran into a Europe United leader who informed me that there was a potential role available. And I said, I think I would be well suited for that. And within probably 10 days, I was hired.
Sounds awesome. So looking back at that personal journey, what were early lessons or turning points that shaped your understanding of hard work, leadership, and economic mobility?
So I would point to two specific instances. First, when I was pivoting from living on the west side of Chicago to the suburbs of northwestern Chicago, my mother was a beneficiary of Section 8 housing, and that moved us out to the suburbs, Des Plaines specifically. The head coach of the high school team saw me tumbling in the park, walked right up to me and was like, where are you learning to tumble like that? And took me in and really helped cultivate my skills and my technique, which really was the foundation I needed to be successful in my athletic career. The coach that he put in place to be my mentor, if you will, really poured into me. Not just athletically, but he knew coming from the west side of Chicago into a private gymnastics club in the Northwest burbs. I think it was Northbrook, Illinois. And if you know anything about Northbrook, that's old Jewish money. I was not well suited for that environment. I had no idea how to operate. And he knew that. And so he took me under his wing and he helped supported me in just pivoting into how to operate in that space. He was the first person that poured into me that was not a family member. And to this day, I attribute a lot of my success to him. The second time in my life was as a business owner. I graduated high school with a Bachelor of Arts in Theater, but I was very good at what I did. And some of my students' fathers who were CEOs, C-suite executives, leaders of massive companies, again, Northwest burbs, very wealthy, saw my talent, but clearly could see I had no idea what I was doing in terms of running a business. The first day I ran payroll was the first day I ran payroll. I literally had no idea. I had no idea what I was doing. And a couple of them being mission-driven individuals, just people that were just good humans, they took me under their wing and they plugged me into the Chamber of Commerce, and they, took me out to lunch. Their daughters loved my program, and they saw how I operated with their kids, and so they wanted me to be successful. And they really gave me a crash course on how to be a good business owner, how to operate a company. Those were the two times that individuals poured into me, and they really were turning points in my journey that really helped get me where I am today, and what fuels me to be able to do the same in return, which is why this role that I'm in now is just, like I said, it's a full circle for me.
That's perfect. I love that background in tumbling. I did cheerleading for 7 years, with the last 3 years or so with Capital Gymnastics, which is a local gym here in DC. I was not fortunate enough to have a mentor that took me under their wing at that time, which would have been awesome. But that sounds like a great experience. And then as an adult, running into mentors while you're running a business is really awesome as well. And I feel like our hue of people have a hard time accepting and asking for help, and understanding when help is being offered. And I've transcended that point that I can actually recognize where I left stuff on the table, where I left opportunities on the table. People always say leave money on the table. It's not always money directly, but there's opportunities that can lead you to higher cash flow. And I do recognize that as you were speaking, and like, that's my whole purpose of this podcast, is for people to be able to introspectively look and also see what is being done, and so how they can improve their own lives. With all of that being said, I do remember when I was running my cleaning business, there was a lady who, while I was cleaning her house, she was running her own business from her house, and she was giving me advice. And what I should have done was connected with her personally and kept up with her, because the advice she gave me was golden, and I still have not acted on it, but it's still in my head. So with that being said, for the audience, please make sure you recognize when you need a little bit of help. Don't ask for it until you know exactly what it is, though, because you could be asking for the wrong type of help. And then don't be afraid to keep asking. That's something I got advice for a long time ago, is don't be afraid to keep asking. If you get an answer from one person that just doesn't sound right, you probably asked the wrong person.
Yeah.
If you get advice from someone and it doesn't work, it's probably because you asked the wrong person, not necessarily that you asked the wrong question. That was a piece of advice I got earlier this week, or I think it was last week. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Even when you get to a higher level, there's millionaires and billionaires that borrow money because all their money is locked in their assets.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Mm-hmm.
be afraid to ask for help. Like
It's so
literally. Yeah.
that you mentioned that when I sold my companies, I was at a point in my life where when I say all of the assets I'd built at that stage in my life were locked. So much so that I was carrying so much debt and so over leveraged. I mean, on paper, I was a millionaire on paper,
Right.
but I was so over leveraged that the defining moment for me, and I'll never forget it, I was out shopping for a bed and I didn't have enough access to my credit to buy it. I had an American Express that I was using, but I was paying it off. And I just knew that if I added anything else to this card, I would not be able to pay it off in full. So I decided to pursue their in-store financing option. I mean, at the time I had great credit, maybe low 800s. I was turned down. I couldn't buy a bed.
Yeah.
I couldn't buy a bed for myself. And that was one of those moments. And I was standing there with my husband. My husband was like, "What? How are you? What? You just got to like, it was, first of all, it was embarrassing.
It is.
Number one. And number two, I'm like, I have a $250,000 insurance rider on 2 locations sitting right now. I have $70,000 sitting on an American Express credit card that I will pay off in full. And you can't give me a bed?"
Yeah.
I was like, I'm done. This is not fitting my life anymore. And so it was one of those moments when I just knew that this was no longer a fit for me. And as I went into the realization of that, I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea what to do. I didn't even know, I didn't know what I was doing when I started a business. So I would definitely not know what to do if I wanted to sell a business or
Right.
that wasn't even an option, you know. And fortunately for me, I just had great mentors who I trusted and that I felt comfortable with and that I could speak to frankly. And I was talking to them about this and they said, "Well, have you ever considered selling?" And I was like, "Come again?" What? And they just guided me in the process of doing something like that I just had no idea what to do. And at the end of it, as I came out of it, I didn't come out of it wealthy. I didn't come out of it with, you know, what you would think you would have selling a business. What I came out of it was whole, clean, out of debt, and with a little bit of a cushion that allowed me to pursue what made sense to me based off of my alignment and my goals versus what I needed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's real wealth, because then that alleviated a lot of stress that was on your mind, because it eliminated the debt. It eliminated this lingering. Everybody always thinks just getting your credit score up is the battle, but it's not, because if they're looking at your whole profile and you're over leveraged, as you stated, then you won't be approved, even for the smallest thing. And you could have been at a cheap store like Ashley Furniture and they would have still given you the same outcome, because they look deeper than just that score that everybody tells, "Oh, hey, you should have an 800. I was able to get furniture from a furniture store with a 500, 600 credit score because I had nothing on my credit other than just like one card that I paid off. And so it makes a difference in how your credit is actually built overall. And thank you for sharing that story and being honest and open about it, because that is a thing that a lot of people do not realize and they're never told. It's more than just getting your score up. It's what's on it. What's on all your reports. If you have more assets than debt, it's not, then your credit still looks bad. So just understanding that is a big hurdle. Financial literacy. That's why I have that passion for financial literacy other than tech.
Yeah. Yes.
So you spent years aligning young talent with corporate America. What was the exact moment you realized traditional corporate hiring systems were failing Black and Brown communities?
You know, I think for me, as I pivoted out of being an entrepreneur into the corporate ladder, if you will, the first thing I recognized was there are categories and boxes that everybody is in. It doesn't really matter your overall skill set. What matters is, do you check certain boxes? And I wasn't in a lane that I could say, okay, I was an accountant. Okay, I was a manager. Okay, I was an engineer. I was a business owner, a small business owner. So I was all of the above, but I wasn't the one thing that each role was looking for. And further, living in Lake County, the northwest burbs, there weren't a lot of individuals like me that were able to look past my resume to see the potential. And the opportunity that I was able to pursue only came about because I had a parent in my organization, very well connected, and said, I know of a role that is being developed in this private business club in Chicago that you'd be perfect for. She made a phone call. That's how I got the interview. And then being in that space, not very many of us were in that space. So I think just my own journey into the corporate space was the first preview, if you will, of what this space actually entailed. And then as I continued to grow my career, the microaggressions or the hurdles or the challenges of individuals that were my peers and even my higher ups, where I'm like, wow, that was pretty aggressive. Okay, just realizing that doing good work is not enough, and at times doing great work can work against you when those that are above you or in your peer group are not also great. And so my just journey helped me understand that. And then being in a position to volunteer for an organization like Europe United, seeing the data, seeing the students, understanding how they receive their opportunities, that cracked it open for me fully. And so as I sit in this role now, I am reminded on a daily basis that this is a challenge for us and will continue to be a challenge for us. But it also creates an opportunity to position those of us in stakeholder and leadership roles and that have the opportunity. It puts us in a unique position of responsibility to actually show up and do the work. So while it's a challenge, I think it's just making us smarter, better, faster, and stronger.
Definitely. I definitely agree with you. All of the reasons that you saw corporate America is not welcoming to us is exactly the reason I went into entrepreneurship. Yeah. So moving young adults from entry-level mindsets to career ownership requires a massive psychological evolution. What is the single biggest mindset shift your students have to make when entering the corporate space?
I think that's a really great question, and I'm going to frame it in what we call workforce career readiness training. That is the first thing we do outside of our proprietary personality assessment tests that we give the students to give them further insights in who they are, actually, not who they see themselves as. Those workforce career readiness skill set training really, I believe, are the kind of thing that separates us from other organizations out there, because we really focus on the soft skills that set our students up to be successful and comport themselves in the way that would support their growth in the corporate setting. The biggest and most important one of them is communication, in the sense of how to give and receive feedback. How to communicate when they get feedback, and how to appropriately communicate giving feedback in that space. It's so important to be able to receive information that will benefit your growth. And it's also so important to communicate to those that are around you that can impact your growth. Having that training, understanding how to do that, how to give and receive that feedback, for me, has been what I've seen to be the most valuable and important skill in supporting these students.
Yeah, that is a very important skill, not only in the corporate world, but in personal life as well.
Period.
Yeah, that's the only way you can grow, is if you're willing to receive feedback, whether you take it as positive or negative. You take it with a grain of salt if you feel like it's negative, but just still receive it and try to maybe assess where it came from. Is it just their personal recollection, or is it really something that I should work on? And dig deeper, ask questions. Like that's a big thing for me, is because everything is being ran by computers and technology at this point. We can automate more and more things to the point that we do need to work on our emotional intelligence, connecting with each other as humans again, and not just employees. And you can't ask somebody how their birthday went or something just because you want to make sure you're not getting too personal with them and things of that nature. It's just, that's where it's getting to, is everybody can do the same thing basically once you employ AI. So what is your differentiator? What is your level? What is your EQ? What is your emotional intelligence level? So that was a great point. So my next question for you, when you look at the landscape of small and mid-sized businesses today, what exact operational bottlenecks are keeping founders trapped in the manual grind?
From a workforce development perspective, talent acquisition perspective, I think understanding all of the options that are available to them and how to obtain the path to, executing them. So, for example, for small and local business owners, I myself understand the challenge of finding good talent. Whether it was my coaching staff, which is very niche, you can't just find a coach that can teach power tumbling and gymnastics and cheerleading and dance at the level in which we do. But that wasn't just all I had to hire. I also had to hire business managers and accountants and office managers and facility managers. I had to hire executive assistants. I mean, we had all of the things to hire. And I was learning as I was growing. So I wasn't exactly sure what I was looking for. I didn't realize that there were opportunities and options for internships and apprenticeships. I didn't know exactly where to go to find the pool of talent. There's so many options out there when it comes to building a talent pipeline. It's to say overwhelming doesn't even do it justice. So I think that the biggest hurdle is really understanding how you can personalize and be very intentional with creating a talent pipeline that not only works for your business, but is at the stage that you are as a business owner and as a leader, just aligned with you, aligned with what you're ready for. And I think that Europe United does a really great job of supporting small, medium, and large businesses, particularly small and medium businesses, in consulting with them and supporting them in this process. We have the ability, because we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, to act as the employer of record. In fact, that's how our program is structured, in the sense that we are the employer of record when we place these students, so that if you want to stand up an internship program, if you want to stand up an apprenticeship program, and you don't have the resources financially or even just logistically to execute on following up on the state and local and federal regulations aligned with those entry access points, we can do that for you. If you're an organization that is looking to pursue grants, we can consult, provide you with the data necessary, even the support of help in terms of the grant writing, to get you awarded these grants. Now, we then expect you will work with us once you're awarded that grant so that we can provide these opportunities for our students. But, I think as an organization, we have been nimble enough to identify how we can best serve not only the students in the community in which we serve, but the public and private partners, no matter where they are in the journey of their business, to be able to be well positioned to take advantage of all of these options.
Great. And that's very true, because a lot of people, when they start a business, I think they don't even look into those alternative options. They just instantly think, let me hire somebody. And then unfortunately, they're hiring somebody and they might not even put them in the position that you actually need another person for.
Right.
Or they're just working in the business instead of on it. And so that's usually the case. And more often than not, they're bleeding money and wondering why. And that's why they're like, well, I hired all these people, I should be growing. You're paying payroll, so you're not growing. Add it to your overhead instead of creating the systems that would say, okay, well, this one person can do these 3 jobs. because we're not that busy. And, making those proper assessments of how your system actually operates and your system.
Well, and it's, one of the things that I remember was really a big challenge for me. I was hiring for roles that I'd never done myself, and I didn't know how to manage them in those roles. I had the support. This was before, the chats and the, LLMs that you could just throw something in. I mean, I could Google things, but I was a niche industry, niche business. And so I knew I needed someone in those roles, but I had no idea. I had a high level idea, but I didn't know how to execute the role. So of course I wouldn't know how to manage those individuals. So I was burning money, just putting people in roles, and then they were doing the things. And I was like, okay, well, that didn't work. Is that you, me, or an error? No idea. And so if you're a small business owner or a medium business owner, and you're out there and you are in this kind of position that we just verbally described, there are opportunities out there for you to even understand what's the difference between an intern and an apprentice. What's the difference in that? What's the difference in an early career hire versus a medium to senior manager? How do you navigate creating these roles? And then how do you manage these individuals and these opportunities to support your business? There are entities out there that can support you, and we are one.
Yeah, that's definitely, even in my, because I already knew of this issue, because I came from food service, and that's the type of business where the turnover rate is high. And so you're always hiring, and that's literally advised, is that you should always be interviewing and have a bank of people that you have ready to hire for when somebody leaves. And the first business, well, not the first business, but one of the businesses I started was a cleaning business. And when I started hiring people, I knew exactly what I wanted them to do. But when it comes to something like housekeeping, I can't be over your shoulder at every single house. Mm-hmm. That was the purpose of me hiring. And so there's the people who, and I had seasoned, and I had people with little experience or medium experience. I had 3 different people, and every one of them failed me, unfortunately, because as soon as I stopped going with you, I'm getting complaints. I'm getting calls because you don't do the optimal job that was expressed to you. I've given you a checklist. I've given you all of the tools to be successful. So you have a checklist of everything that you need that's supposed to be cleaned at each house and the times, and they still do not follow the rules or instructions. And sometimes you just can't control how people behave. But I will say my interview process could have been better. I think that would have helped. So my next question for you. Europe United operates a 12-month program combining learning and development with hands-on internships. How do you structure that training so students step into the job on day one, ready to deliver immediate ROI?
So the program itself, high level, is a 12-month program divided up into 2 different categories. There are L&D, learning and development, and then there's 6-month paid internship. The final step in that is a conversion into full-time hire for that individual within the vertical and or pathway that they have started. What we do is we focus on reverse engineering from the end result, which is our outcome. And that is hiring into that role. And so we start with the roles. What is the actual role? What's the industry? What's the vertical? What's the culture of the team and the organization? What's the description? Technical skills versus engagement environment and culture of the organization. We obtain what we call demand, and that demand answers all of those questions for the particular role. And then we reverse engineer from that. And then we create all our enrollment based off of that demand. And so we obviously go through the 4 key pathways, core pathways, business, IT, software, and customer success / sales, and filter those roles through and match them to the students. Many of our partnerships include engagement of our L&D team so that the hard technical culture skills that are necessary for success of those students is included in the L&D, so that when these students are going through their learning and development, they can be obtaining the actual skills necessary to be successful in the role that we reverse engineered them for. And so when they start in that first day of internship, they're not beginning at day 1. They have been offered a series of training that is very intentional and specific to the role in which they're being filled. Now that does take some time to, get to that stage. We perfect that method. The longer you're in partnership with us, the more that method is perfected. You don't typically get that in the first new partnership that we engage in because we're just starting. Now, once you get into your third cycle with us and we've had some feedback, there's lots of data. We are a data-driven organization. Everything we do is based off of data. There are constant feedbacks and surveys and requests of insights on how we actually performed. I was telling you before our call this morning, we were in a look back, look forward call this morning based off of the LC that we were in. So there's a lot of that happens. And so based off of all of that information, we try our very best to be as accurate as possible so that when those students are placed, the likelihood of them being converted is very, very high.
Awesome. So when an internship or operational rollout hits friction, what is your process for re-engineering the workflow to turn that failure into a permanent system upgrade?
Being proactive versus reactive. So the way our organization is structured, placement success portion of the value proposition never stops. So we begin that relationship at the beginning of the partnership acquisition, very much like we did this morning on our call. Kedrick will be your point of contact for a full 6 months. There is a system in place that not only supports the intern, but the manager. And so we are looking at their performance weekly. There's a weekly touch point for the students. There will be a manager's onboarding and training experience for you all as you continue the partnership. There will be surveys, insights, feedback that we collect not only from the students, but the managers. We do site surveys for our partners with our students. If the roles are remote, these surveys are, executed remotely. But we try to be proactive to potentially sniff out any beginnings of issues before they are major issues that will require a hard correct or a removal of a student. This is an internship, and we treat this as a teachable experience for everyone. So we don't typically get ourselves into a position where students are removed. Does it happen? Sure. But the intention behind the relationship is pretty clear on both sides. This is a learning experience for the student or the young adult, and we're here to position them to be successful. In the extreme situations that do occur, we can pull a student and replace a student. As you all can see, we have multiple students that are well positioned for opportunities. So if something happens, we can replace them, but we try ultimately to be proactive versus reactive, such that any challenges that will occur, learning opportunities that will occur, that's the point. We're there to, navigate that in from a positive perspective and a learning perspective versus, a negative perspective or a, punishment perspective.
Okay, that's wonderful because that helps foster growth, right? Yes. So Europe recently partnered with Anthropic to train students directly on AI tools. So how are you preparing young adults to command AI workflows rather than compete against them?
So the partnership with Anthropic is pretty exciting. We had started a process prior to the partnership in the sense of automating most of our workflows through all of our career pathways. We as staff, I think, are more excited about Anthropic because we individually and different teams were kind of like putting our own AI tools together. One team was using Read Assist, one team was using Zoom Assist, one team was using Chat AI, one team, we were all over the place with our AI tools as an organization. And so I am very excited and very grateful for our leaders to kind of take this opportunity at the horns and say, no, we are going to create an official partnership to identify how as a team we will leverage AI to better serve our students and what pathway we're taking to help support the automation of each one of these, not capstones, but competencies that are executed via all of our pathways. And that has been a massive shift where everyone on the organization at the same page is on the same page, from our students to our staff. It's still an early partnership, was just announced early this year. So I'm still learning more about how it works and supports the students on the curriculum side, but on the leadership side, we have a series of courses that we have completed. We understand how to use Anthropic's tools to support our workflows. And it's really helped get everybody on the same page and to support all of us at different levels of like interest and or engagement when it comes to utilizing the tools that are at our disposal.
That's awesome because, well, I don't know if you know for sure, but that's one of the things that Flowbot Forward advocates for small and medium-sized businesses and large businesses, but they usually already have a tech team, is AI policy and governance. So as you stated before, if everybody's using all different kinds of tools and they're getting all kinds of different results, but also what is unconsciously being done is corporate information is being put into all of these different models and all of these different accounts. And so unifying it and having that AI policy so that everybody's using the same model and same structure, it just helps unify and make everything a level playing field throughout the corporation, and it's safer.
100%.
So,
yeah, it's more accurate because now that all of our tools, even our Slack, has Claude channel, Slack channel, if you will. Now the questions, the requests, the prompts, the outputs are more accurate because it's referencing our proprietary tools and the data that, like I said, we're a data-driven organization. It's more accurate now. It speaks to all of the resources. Just Slack, I'm sure you've used a Slack. It's a mess. It's like,
it is.
Where did I see this message? What Slack channel? Who wrote it? Where is it? It's just so much sometimes. Well, now I can just go into the Claude Slack channel and just say, hey, someone wrote or put in some channel, this information. Can you help find it for me? And it, boom, pops up. And it's like, oh, okay, thank you. Before I would have been digging from channel. It's just like, it's just been so helpful. Yeah.
I definitely feel the same way. I've dove deeper into Google Workspace and Google's AI tools and just their workspace tools, period. And so we were using Slack for a while, but as you saw on my face, I do not favor. I'm not going to say I hate it. It's just I don't favor Slack. And I never really favored Google until recently. Like this year, it's been my end all be all. And I was using Claude Code. I was using ChatGPT. But Google Workspace has been a godsend. And the new updates that they have every week, every day lately are awesome. With that being said, I was getting to Google Chat, works like Slack, and the way Slack works now. So you can literally just ask Gemini, hey, which person said this, and it'll bring it back. And I love it. You can go into your Google Drive and just ask it. Literally not for a document. I go in there, I can ask the secure one that we have with all of our business stuff. Hey, what's my EIN number? It can pull it up. It won't tell me which document to open. It pulls it up and says, here it is. It just makes life so much easier. So you advocate for high impact roles like technical sales enablement and forward deployed engineers. How can small business founders integrate these AI powered operators to eliminate back office clutter, as we were just speaking to?
I think being first and foremost high level in terms of education of what these LLMs and these models offer. As an individual, I took a coursive course and it took me maybe 7 days to dive into like all the different companies and all the different tools. It was an hour every day that is self-guided, like, here's this tool. This is what it does. Now, let me just ask you questions to see if you retained it. And if I didn't get it, then I went back. And it was very gamified. So it wasn't like laborious. I could do it at the end of my workday and still feel like I'm engaged and not like I wanted to bash my head up against the wall. And so I just really took it upon myself to understand what this was. And so that when I was entering into high level conversations to identify a tool that made sense for me, I could speak like I was informed and not just hear someone tell me something and just believe what they have to say. So I think first and foremost, just you don't have to be an expert. You don't have to dive into like a crazy level of certifications. Just give yourself 7 hours to understand what this is. Just like tapping the surface. You don't have to drill down, but just take the time to educate yourself on what this is as an entity high level. That's the first and most important thing that I suggest. Even personally, my mother-in-law, she's retired. She used to run the Northwestern Women's Medical Clinic. Incredibly smart woman, very capable. She is the CEO of our family and does a lot. She's a lot of moving pieces. And we keep telling her about, AI and Anthropic and chat, all the things. And she's like, I want to do all this. It wasn't because she had a aversion to it. She just didn't understand it. And so I sent her my course, and my nephew decided, Mima, we're going to do this, me and you. And now she can't get enough. All her calendar, she books all her flights. She got everything is going through AI now because she just needed to understand what it was. And now she's like, okay, I got it. And so she's using AI to her benefit in her personal life and in the management of her family to really support her and give her a little bit more of her time.
I like that. That just reminds me of like when I showed my dad how to generate pictures and stuff. He dove into it, generating memes and all kinds of things. And it also reminds me of my mentor in wealth building, Warren Buffett, who is completely adverse to technology. But meanwhile, he has one of his daughters actually makes and sells NFTs. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So he fosters the growing and the learn. He just doesn't want to learn it. He doesn't have to. He already built his wealth off of not technology. So.
Right.
Yeah. So Prosperity Pathways is all about wealth architecture, as I stated. How does placing these young adults in high growth tech careers create a compounding ripple effect for generational wealth in their families?
I think the beginning step in that journey is education and understanding the access points to the opportunities. One of the very, I think, valuable lessons via curriculum that we teach is money management. They are required to create budgets for themselves. They're required to understand the difference between forecasting and cash flow. We put them in a simulation with their personal finances to apply that to a business. So let's just say Craig Barnard-El was a Europe-United student. We put them into a project that says, you are now Craig Barnard-El Incorporated. You now have to create a forecast, a budget, and a cash flow for your company based off of your income and your expenses. And that project gives them the awareness to understand what it's like to manage your financial well-being like you would managing a business's well-being. And that, whether they take that experience on and apply it consistently to their life, at the very least, they now have the knowledge to do so. And I think that then opens up their mind to be more interested in learning more about savings. What type of savings? High yield, personal savings accounts? Are we looking at other money management tools, investing, how to grow your income, policies, the market, it just opens your mind to be interested in learning more versus not being in the conversation of all of these other tools because you haven't even learned the foundation and the basics of money management and cash.
Yeah, exactly. Because you could always invest your money, but if you don't know how to manage your money properly, you'll end up pulling it for the smallest things. And the reason I mentioned that is because I made that problem before. I was taught how to invest in the stock market, 6th grade. It was a stock market game for just as a way to build assets. It was a math game to us. We
Mm-hmm.
thought it was a game. And so until I grew up and started trading myself is when I realized what it really was. The first time I invested, I put $50 on AMD while it was $25 a share. I pulled it out 30 days later because I needed $50 for gas. A year later in December, when it was $250 a share, I was mad at myself.
Yeah.
I was definitely mad at myself because I could have had the discipline to figure something else out or just leverage properly. It's so many options that I now know of and know how to properly manage that I'm just waiting for the wealth to start coming in. That's all. Because it's slowly it's trickling in. So we're getting there. My next question for you, and we're almost done because I know we have stuff to do today, right?
Yeah.
Year Up acts as the employer of record, as you stated, handling benefits, payroll taxes, admin burdens from a capital and tax strategy perspective. Why is this model the ultimate hack for founders who need to scale headcount without destroying their cash flow?
Because it puts less pressure on said cash flow, operationally and financially. Figuratively and literally. As an organization, we can provide a pathway to show you the value while minimizing the risk. And so as organizations grow and they realize the importance of these type of programs, they can decide to take the full burden of these opportunities and build their own internship programs and apprenticeship programs once they are at the position to be able to fund them. They can do that, but most businesses don't have the bandwidth to do that and test it and try it out, and so we give them a space to do just that. And then on top of that, for our larger companies, our EOI partners that could do this if they wanted, what they're able to do is they're able to tap those resources that they would typically use to execute these programs, and they're able to pour it into the leadership team and the bandwidth to support our students in their journey. And so that it's all about what you do with your resources. You can take the resources and apply it to these like logistical, operational, financial obligations to execute these programs, or you can take those exact same resources and pour it into the humans that will make these programs successful. And so whether you are small business, medium, or large, the value of being able to utilize us as a tool will support your ability to to execute on the eventual outcome, which is a successful internship conversion into a full-time.
Definitely. So with that being said, community impact isn't just charity, it's brand equity. How does aligning a business with workforce development strengthen its long-term authority and sustainability?
Because you are building your own talent pipeline. You as a business owner know what you need best. You are the one that knows what you need now. You knew what you needed yesterday, and you probably know what you'll need tomorrow. And at times it takes time to kind of build that, like you're building putty, you know what I'm saying? Or you're building a machine. Like you're not done until it's done, So if you could see, all right, in 6 months, I'm going to need this role, but I don't know exactly what that role entails. You can work with us, or just the process of workforce development and talent pipeline building. You can work to build what that needs to look like so that it's best suited for you, your business, your company, where you are as a company, you as as a leader, and or the other leaders that you will have in place to support this vision, build those roles that are aligned with the talent that they need in terms of technical, as well as the culture of the teams and the managers hosting. And so it's important to make sure that you take this opportunity to build your workforce development a portion of your organization and talent development, because you will be best served long-term by doing that. Other than versus reactively going out and searching for talent when you think you need it, and then just finding someone because you're up against a deadline. Build a system that will be proactive in providing you with the talent that you need, so that when you need it, it's there for you. And it's being cultivated and baked. Like the kids say, let them cook. You cooking, you cooking your food. You putting your own ingredients in it. versus kind of like going out and getting fast food, because it ain't good for you. It may taste good, it may fill the need immediately, but it's not giving you what you need.
Nope. And usually when you run out there and just grab somebody because you need help, you don't have the systems in place to properly train them. And so at the end of it, you have a frustrated worker and a frustrated founder, because the founder is saying, hey, this worker's not doing what I want them to do. And the worker's saying, I don't know what they want me to do.
Everybody mad.
Yeah, it's like they're always mad at me and I don't know. I never understand. They never trained me. There's so many issues that can arise and everybody's mad.
Everybody mad.
So, exactly. So Craig, for our final question, what is one mindset shift, daily habit, or core lesson that you would like to share with our viewers and pathway finders who are working to build a better future for themselves and future generations?
You know, leaders, we typically want our teams to be lifelong learners, to be nimble, to be open to trying new things and exploring. I would advise you leaders to do the same. Be open to thinking outside of the box, be open to learning different opportunities and pathways. And really, when it comes to being strategic and intentional, proactive versus reactive, find the resources that support you in executing that. If it's not us, maybe it's Genesis Works, maybe it's, you know, a university partnership, a small community college partnership, a certified technical institute. There are other orgs out here that do this type of work. Be curious, get out there, learn, take the time, invest in this like you invest in another project, because this pipeline will fuel your business, your growth, and your well-being as an owner and as a leader.
Yes, sir. So builders, let that sink in. The plan, strategic workforce partnerships, AI-powered talent, and systemized growth. The results, absolute legacy. So a massive thank you to you, Craig, and for dropping these real-world receipts for my audience today. If you have anything else to say to the audience, just let them know. But otherwise, thank you guys for joining us here in the Forge today. And I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Huge thank you, Erica, to you. Excited to be a part of the Forge community. And I look forward to more opportunities to engage and be a part.